You know, for almost 3,000 years, there's been one story that's basically defined what it means to take the long way home. And we are talking about Homer's Odyssey. It's this incredible tale of a hero's journey back from the Trojan War, a journey so epic, so legendary that people are still talking about it thousands of years later. All right, let's get into it.
And look, when we say it's a long journey, we really mean it. Just try to wrap your head around this. You spend 10 years fighting a brutal, bloody war, and then you spend another 10 years just trying to get back to your family. 20 years. That's the staggering amount of time we're talking about here.
So at the very heart of all this is one guy, Odysseus. He's the super cunning king of Ithaca. After he comes up with the whole Trojan horse idea and basically wins the war, all he wants is to get back home to his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. But, well, the gods and fate, they had some very different plans for him.
Okay, so the journey begins. Odysseus and his fleet set sail from the ruins of Troy, and they're feeling pretty good, hopeful. But almost right away, things start to go completely sideways. It's like a little taste of just how hard this is going to be.
First, they get attacked just trying to restock their supplies. Then a massive storm hits and blows them way off course. And then they land on this island, home to the lotus eaters. Some of his crew eat this magical fruit that just wipes their memory. They forget their past, their families. They even forget that they want to go home. It's this incredible metaphor for temptation, right? For losing sight of what's important. Odysseus literally has to drag his own men back to the ships, kicking and screaming.
But believe me, those early problems were nothing. They were just the warm-up act. Because this next encounter, well, it's going to push Odysseus' cleverness to the absolute limit and bring down the fury of a very powerful god.
So, Odysseus and his men stumble into this cave, and it's full of food, cheese, meat, the whole deal. But then the owner comes home, and it's Polyphemus, a man-eating, one-eyed giant who rolls a boulder in front of the entrance that no human could ever move. Oh, and here's the worst part. He's the son of Poseidon, the god of the sea. They are so trapped.
And this is where we see what makes Odysseus so special. It's not his strength, it's his brain. He knows he can't fight the giant head-on, so he outsmarts him. He gets him wasted on some super strong wine, tells him his name is Nobody, and then, while the giant's passed out, he and his men drive a massive, sharpened stake right into his single eye. To escape, they cling to the bellies of the giant's sheep as he lets them out to graze in the morning. Absolutely brilliant.
And the plan works perfectly. When the blinded Polyphemus starts screaming for help, the other Cyclopses come running to his cave and shout, "Who's hurting you?" And all he can yell back is, "Nobody is killing me." So confused, they just leave him alone. It's a perfect deception, genius-level stuff.
But then, as they're sailing away, Odysseus makes a huge mistake. It's a moment of pure ego, what the Greeks called hubris. He just can't resist taunting the Cyclops, screaming his real name across the water. "It was I, Odysseus, who beat you." He just had to get the credit.
And that right there is the turning point. By revealing his name, Odysseus gives the Cyclops someone to curse. Polyphemus prays to his father, Poseidon, who lays down this awful fate. Odysseus will lose every single man he has, and he'll wander the sea for a decade before he ever sees home again. And from this moment on, that curse defines his entire journey.
So, with this terrible curse hanging over his head, Odysseus gets thrown into this non-stop gauntlet of mythological nightmares. The journey stops being about getting home and starts being about just pure survival.
Now, at this point, even after those first few setbacks, Odysseus still has a fleet of 12 ships. That's a pretty respectable force.
But that changes in an instant, and it's horrifying. They pull into the harbor of the Laestrygonians, a tribe of giant cannibals. And these guys don't fight with swords. They stand on the cliffs above and just hurl giant boulders down onto the fleet.
And just like that, it's over. 11 of the 12 ships are smashed to bits, the crews all devoured. Only Odysseus' own ship, which he had smartly docked outside the main harbor, manages to get away. His entire fleet is gone.
And the trials are far from over. Next up, he faces a truly impossible choice, a real rock-and-a-hard-place situation. He has to sail through this narrow strait. On one side, you've got Scylla, a six-headed sea monster that's guaranteed to snatch 6 of his men from the deck. On the other side is Charybdis, a giant whirlpool that will just swallow the entire ship whole. He has to choose, lose 6 men for sure, or risk losing everyone? What do you even do?
And the hits just keep on coming. He has to outsmart the witch Circe, who turns his men into pigs. He even has to travel to the underworld to get a prophecy. Then he faces the Sirens, these creatures whose songs are so beautiful that they make sailors crash their ships right into the rocks. So what does he do? He has his crew plug their ears with beeswax, but he has them tie him to the mast so he can be the first person ever to hear their song and live to tell the tale. It's just peak Odysseus, so curious he's willing to risk death, but smart enough to plan for it.
But for all his cleverness, Odysseus can't protect his men from themselves. The final chapter of their journey together is a tragedy they bring on their own heads, a moment that finally fulfills Poseidon's curse and leaves our hero completely, totally alone.
Remember that trip to the underworld? Well, the prophet Tiresias gave Odysseus one very specific, very clear warning. When you get to the island of the sun god, Helios, whatever you do, do not touch his sacred cattle.
But of course, a storm traps them on that exact island for a whole month. They run out of food, they're starving, and while Odysseus is asleep, his crew caves. They kill and eat the sacred cattle, and in doing so, they seal their own fate.
Helios is furious. He complains to Zeus, who then hurls a thunderbolt at their ship as soon as they set sail again. The ship is completely destroyed, and every single man drowns. Poseidon's curse is now complete. Only Odysseus survives, clinging to a piece of the wreckage, all alone in the vast sea.
He drifts for 9 days before washing up on the island of the goddess Calypso. She falls for him and basically holds him prisoner for 7 long years. She even offers him immortality if he'll stay with her, but he says no, spending his days just crying on the shore, desperate to get back to his wife. Finally, the goddess Athena steps in, gets Zeus to order his release, and he's eventually helped by the Phaeacians, who give him that last ride home.
So, after 20 long years, Odysseus finally sets foot on Ithaca again. But his journey is not over, not even close. He's come home to a place that's been overrun by his enemies, and he has to fight one last battle to take back his life. And here's the final problem he has to solve. His palace is filled with over 100 arrogant men, suitors, all trying to marry his wife Penelope and take over his kingdom. They're armed, they're powerful, and they all assume Odysseus is long dead. So the question is, how can one man, all alone, possibly defeat all of them? With his brain, of course. Athena disguises him as an old beggar so he can sneak into his own home and scope out the situation. He secretly reveals himself to his son, Telemachus, who's now a grown man. Together, they come up with a plan. It all comes down to a test Penelope sets up. She'll marry any man who can string Odysseus' powerful bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads. All the suitors try, and they all fail miserably. Then, the old beggar steps up, strings the bow like it's nothing, and makes the impossible shot. And then, he turns that bow on the suitors. With all the suitors defeated, Odysseus finally reveals himself and reunites with Penelope. And this is it. This is the moment she had been waiting for 20 long, faithful years. After the war, the monsters, the curses, the captivity, after everything, the hero is finally home. He's at peace, in the arms of the wife whose memory was the one thing that kept him going through it all.